every person I work with is very like, it's got to be done this way with this mic, and it's got to be in the specific spot, and you can't move it, and just all this like precision. And obviously there's oh my God.
What was that?
That was one of my daughter's big balloons out here. It just exploded.
Laugh out of me. Hi, I'm Jen Thomas for NME, and in the latest episode of our In Conversation series today, I'm joined by Jeremy from A Day to Remember. Thank you very much for joining us today. Now,
thank you for having me.
To say the album has been delayed quite a while. Things like a global pandemic will do that. How are you feeling about it's finally coming out?
Honestly, so much has happened. It's almost unbelievable that it's actually coming out. There's like a part of me that won't believe it until it actually is live.
Till you've got it in your hands, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of get that feeling every time like a new single or something comes out. It's like I'll pop up on Spotify and Apple Music. I'm like, oh, wow, the music's actually coming out.
So how was it for you, obviously, having to delay it because of the pandemic? Obviously, nobody could have predicted that this was going to happen. It's been a long time coming. Was it frustrating for that, or was it actually quite fun in a way to have more time to play with it?
Honestly, like the music itself was pretty much done. We wrapped that up on the tour we did in the States, the last one, the Degenerates tour. And other than that, the whole record was done before that. We had our producer, Colin Britton, come out for like, there were 2 bridges and 2 songs. I was like, I don't think that's quite right. Let's tweak them just a little bit. And then we got them to a place. I thought they were perfect, and that was it. And then the rest of it was just, let's create album art that we equally feel as strong about as the record, which proved to be much more difficult than we anticipated. And also with the mixing and mastering of everything, the way we had set this record up, it was very much set up in a way that we'd never done before, because we were going to divvy out specific songs that, for instance, like a song like FYM, Fuck You Money. That song's going to go to, Lord Algie, because we love this mix that he's done. And we're going to send Mind Reader off to Neil Avron because we love this mix that he's done, and we think he's going to nail that one. So we really divvied out singles and specific songs to mixers that we thought would accent them properly, or would just kill it on those. Because A Day to Remember genre hops. We always have. So our thought process was, let's get all these awesome people working on the stuff that we love them for. That's great in a normal time period when you can just walk into a room with them and hash it out together and walk out with a finished product day of or the next day. But when every single change or difference of opinion is being relayed through email, spread through 5 people, multiple managers, their side, our side, it's like, it just got to be, you can imagine if you've been a part of a creative process during COVID where you're mainly using email, it has made things so much more drawn out. And that's what happened. It was a lot of situations like that on top of each other. So it was really hard for our fan base to believe that it was mixing and artwork that held it up for a year, but just not being able to go hash it out in person really, really slowed this thing down to a snail's pace.
And you mentioned there about using the different mixers and divvying them out, as you say, to these different people. Obviously, you co-produced it and you were working with Colin, but were there ever any concerns about making it a cohesive record if you were giving it to so many different people to work on and having these different sounds and genre hopping, as you say?
So our way of doing that, mastering, we were hoping was going to tie that all together in a nice bow. And mainly it was going to be Colin's Colin's production taste. So no matter what song was influenced by whatever genre and whoever we worked with on that specific song. Colin and I oversaw all of the excess production that kept that line throughout the whole record. So no matter who the song was written with or, collaborated with, Colin and I added that production layer through all of it to keep it cohesive. Mm-hmm. So it definitely jumps around in mix and everything. And the record is meant to be sporadic. We put the track listing together more like a live show than, a record that flows in and out of songs, because we've done that before, but we put this one together because it jumps around so much like a live set. We wanted to take them on that journey, that we wanted to have hills and valleys and energy. You know what I mean? Where it's like you build up to this really powerful, heavy moment or this dark moment, and then you bring them back down slowly. You know what I mean? Bring them back down with a slower jam or like a ballad or something. So there's very much hills and valleys on this. I've already seen people that have gotten review copies calling it a musical roller coaster, which I absolutely loved.
I've been listening to it all day today, and it is the case, as you say, when you've got the songs about the What About Mexico, you've got the Fuck You Money, you've got all of that, and then you've got these ballads in between that are clearly very personal that we'll touch on later. But it has got that, as you say, the highs and the lows, and a roller coaster is a good way of describing it. Now, you wrote 40 songs for this in the process of it. What was it like narrowing that down, and will you be using any of the other songs for any other records?
I hope so. Some of my favorites didn't make it because they just were a step too far in a certain direction, or, we had another song on the record that was similar and people like this one better than that one. So some of my favorite songs didn't get used. I think we've got easily 5 songs that no questions asked at some point would get released with minimal work on them. So there was just so much material to go through. It was really hard. It's like we got to a point where, there's so much stuff we love here. Something's going to be sacrificed if we continue on this path to like making a double album or something. Cause it's like the time you'd have to take to produce a double album's worth of songs, we wouldn't have had that time to spend on the songs that did make it. Does that make sense? It's like just that much less time spent on things that, maybe mean more in the long run.
Quality, not quantity, isn't it? So you're focusing on the quality of the songs that you were picking.
Exactly. It's like and I think the label was really helpful with that. It's like, what's everybody's favorites here? Let's start there. Like, what are the songs you cannot live without, no questions asked? And we had that conversation 3 different times throughout the recording process and made those cuts as the songs progressed, as we continued to work on them. And, something you hoped was going to work out with more time spent on it was still in a rough spot. And then it was easier to say, okay, that can wait for another day. So they were actually really helpful with making it concise and making us focus on what was the best at that moment. And I think that was the right move.
And there does seem to be as we mentioned earlier, about a thread in terms of the lyrics. There seems to be a theme of like the optimism and the positivity. I mean, Bloodsucker, you talk about somebody that is draining that positive energy. Brick Wall, about the pessimist. There does seem to be a big focus on energy and things like that. Is that something that was intentional, or it's just that was where your head was at the time of writing?
Sure, that was intentional. That's a good point. You're right, though. I never looked at it like that, and I think that's pretty cool. Wow. So not intentional, but cool.
That's often the best way, isn't it, when you look at things afterwards? And I guess that's part of the fun, is when you release the record out into the world, it becomes other people's records. They have their own interpretation, and then it's up to you whether you go, yes, I meant that. That was clearly that other level. Yeah.
Some of my favorite moments in music are from that. One time, like in the homesick cycle, we were in another country, and a military member came up to me and he was talking to me about our song, Mr. Highway. And he was explaining to me how it was verbatim his life. And he explained it to me. And when he did, I was just like, wow, that is about your life. And it wasn't, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it was word for word exactly what he said. And it blew me away. It was like a special moment. He was like, this song got me through a lot because of this, because like I felt like somebody knew exactly what I was going through. So those are the best. That's the best, when people find their own meaning and stuff that you didn't even realize was there.
And wasn't it that the album title, Youre Welcome, that came from a fan and it was because of a hoodie? How did that come about?
Okay, so I had this outfit, we were playing Mexico. First time we played there in a long time. We were playing this cool festival. I had these shoes with an outfit I wanted to wear, and I needed a white hoodie to tie it all together. And we go to a store, all of us, and I find this white hoodie and, a little pocket print down here, small, said, "You're welcome." And I thought that was hilarious. It's like, oh, that's funny. If somebody gets a zoom into that, they'll probably get a chuckle, and it was like bright red. So like tied in with my outfit perfectly. So I was just like, this is it. I'm wearing this. I was so excited. And there was a photo taken later that night during the show. Our friend Adam, I held up the shirt like this, and it was like zoomed in on it and said, "You're welcome." And I posted it because, like, I just thought it was a cool photo. And one of the first comments underneath it was, "Calling it right now. The new record's called You're Welcome." And because like that wasn't the plan at all, I read it. And it hit me like I was a fan being told the new Adater member record's titled You're Welcome. And it just like kind of hit me. And I sat there, I thought about it. I digested it as, what if that was our record title? That's pretty cool that we had a photo we were promoting this far back. It's like, I think I love this. So it just felt right for whatever reason. It made me chuckle to myself when I read it. You know what I mean? It made me happy. It felt very much like not taking yourself too seriously, like our whole brand has always been. It just, I don't know. I sent it to the guys. I was like, there's this. I've got a few ideas, but what about this? And everybody was like, kind of awesome. So
and that's
You're welcome
for that fan as well when they find out that their comment's the one that inspired it.
Oh, he knew. Somebody found him. He came to a show. We took a photo with him and everything. Whole shebang.
And like, speaking of Mexico, obviously I mentioned that track earlier on, Viva La Mexico on the record. It is quite joyously chaotic, I think is one way of putting it. It's written about a stag do, isn't it? So what I want to know is what happened to that rule of what happens on the stag do stays on the stag do instead of ending up inspiring a song?
Look, I didn't name names. So I didn't name names. We actually just did an interview the other day where they started naming names. I'm like, I didn't put you guys in there like that on purpose, but I guess they're just going balls to the wall. Hey, it ain't me. I'm not the one telling. So,
so they outed themselves. They named themselves and claimed it, right?
Somebody claimed a certain spot of the song, and that's how it was written. It was very much like collectively, all of these different scenarios happened to one person or the other. Mm-hmm. And I just told it from the perspective of one human being having this just wild time in Mexico. So it is a true story, and it's about typical Americans going to Mexico for typical American reasons, and then actually falling in love with the country for the people and, the country itself, actually seeing the beauty of it. So pretty awesome. And I love that it's got that like 90s vibe, you know what I mean? That post-chorus riff with the Weezer type woo part. Like, I love it. Like that, like to me, that riff, the first time I heard it, I was like, this is one of those riffs where if I was in high school, I would have learned that and played it so much my mom would have came in and been like, please stop playing.
Yeah, that's when you know you've done it. When you hear that, kids are going to be playing that in their bedroom and they're going to be learning that on the guitar. For me,
exactly, it's just fun.
When you hear people singing the lyrics back as well, the record is out, hearing the fan favorites must be exciting, hearing how it is translating to them. Sometimes I should imagine it's the song that you expect least is the one that they end up loving.
That's, you saying that just gave me goosebumps, because once again, those are like some of my favorite moments in music, having that live show where you have that moment like, oh, wow, this is happening right now. You know what I mean? Like we had a moment like when it really kicked off for us was that record Homesick. So that was like the first time we experienced like real support. And we had a moment like that where we're standing backstage in a hallway and everybody starts to do the chanting thing from the beginning of Downfall that started that record. And we're just standing in the backstage, like waiting to walk out with our eyes like this. And I just look at everybody like, oh my God, is it going to be like this forever? Like everywhere we go now, this is incredible. You know, they're just like doing it on their own over the music that's playing like out front. It's like, this is insane. Like, and we've had many moments like that with random songs, you know, like you play it in, you know, a random day in Idaho. And then this song specifically gets this wild reaction. And you just look at all the guys like, oh my God, another one.
Happening. Another one. We've done it again, boys. We've got another one in our hands. Yeah. And kind of on the other end of the scale from Viva La Mexico, you've got Only Money, which comes across as a very personal song. I mean, obviously, this is my interpretation of it from listening to it, but it seems like it's about being away a lot for work, being on tour. It's not worth missing memories. Has it given you time to think with the pandemic? Are there any regrets of time on the road? And do you think it will change things going forward in terms of touring and how much time you're spending away?
Well, I'm always very, very conscious of that. I always have been, you know, when we were really putting in the work to try to grow this back in the day through, you know, for those who have heart, common courtesy, really putting in that grunt work. It was a learning process, you know, and I was grateful. You know, we did a lot of that grunt work when we were our early 20s. It was the perfect time in our lives to do it. You know, like we wanted to get out there. We wanted to see the world. We wanted to, because everything was new. You know what I mean? We hadn't been to see every place in the US. We hadn't been overseas ever in our lives. You know what I mean? There were so many firsts to still experience it, like helped push you to do these things that a normal person would say, I'm not doing that. Yeah. But that promise of like, I never thought I'd be able to see England. You know what I mean? And I get to go there and play music. And then it was slowly building over time, you know, like you had real tangible differences in the growth of our band over the years, like this slow snowball effect. So we got to the point where it's like, okay, we've done a lot of that. Let's try to protect family life and also continue to build this. And the guys, management, everybody has worked with us on creating something that worked for us specifically. And honestly, we couldn't have done more. You know, like we now that we've been a band so long, it's more like we'll do a month of touring, a month off. So we do have a good balance of the two already, even if COVID didn't happen. But now that COVID did happen, I 100% looked at it that way. It's like, it sucks that legitimately all musicians just overnight didn't have a job and we've all had to figure it out and live off of pretty much 2019's income for 2 years. That obviously sucks, but at the same time, flip that coin, I would have missed between that time at least a year of my daughter's life. So I got to be here, and I'm seeing the difference in the relationship because I got that extra time. So I don't know. I feel I try to be the guy that's always looking for the positive in the crappy situation, and that's a really big positive.
And it's the silver lining, as you say, isn't it? And as I mentioned earlier about the theme of the positivity and kind of the energy and the optimism, perhaps that is something that did soak into it. As you say, it wasn't a conscious thing having this theme throughout, but maybe it's something that percolated throughout the lockdown, and it has given people a chance to reassess things and be more grateful. I mean, I know for me, for sure, when live shows come back, I'm going to be going to everything. I will go to the opening of an envelope if there is a band playing there because we were all so guilty of taking it for granted. And I think now it is going to give a renewed perspective.
100%. Like there's so many things like that. We've been talking about that specific scenario the whole time. It's like, God, can you imagine the first few weeks of tour? Whatever places, if you catch a group on that first 2 weeks, like you're going to see something special, hands down. because it's like the energy that everybody's going to have of being thankful just to be around one another again. And it's coming. Like, I keep seeing everybody online saying, yeah, it may never go back to the same. It's just like, how can you say that? Like, think of like how far humanity has come. You know what I mean? Like, there's been multiple diseases that struck us over history, and it got back to normal. You lived your life the way you did. You know what I mean? So I always look at it like that. Like, you can't tell me, like, it may be longer than you anticipate, but you can't tell me we're not going to figure it out. That's the way I'm going to look at it, at least. So I cannot wait for that day that we're all back together. It's going to be amazing.
So you're booked for Download Festival. There's been the announcements in the UK about when they're expecting the tours and the festivals and things to be able to happen. And there is a lot of positivity at the moment about festivals here in this country.
I saw something last week about a release that some things might actually happen. And I was like showing the guys the other day, like, hey, what's up with this? Is it going to happen after all?
So do you have any particular favorite memories of playing Download? I mean, I've seen you play there a few times. I know when you had like the beach balls and everything flying around everywhere. Are there any particular favorite memories that you have of Donington?
I mean, they're all so great. Like, Donington has always been like the pinnacle for us. It was the first big festival we played that would have us, you know, and each time it's felt like we've done just that much better. And they've supported us so much and backed us from the jump. I mean, we were playing mostly for those who have heart set the first time we played that place. And one of the funniest moments of my career happened where, you know, we had a British TM. He's like, dude, this is a legendary festival, man. Like, you should say something. You should you should say a little something about how this is cool. You got this opportunity. And I was like, you're right. This is an amazing opportunity, man. I'm from the middle of nowhere, Florida. Like, I can't believe I'm playing this. Like, you're right. What an awesome perspective. I'm going to say something. And, you know, like, I got that feeling. I was like, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. So I give this little speech. I think, if I remember correctly, it came out pretty good. Like, I was really happy. It flowed naturally. And then I realized what song I was about to intro right after. You know, I give this like very much like, thank you for this being on this amazing rock festival, like talking about very much rock oriented, this speech that I gave. And then I'm just like, I close my eyes. I'm like, this next song's a cover song called Since You've Been Gone.
Oh, yay.
I didn't even think.
A bit of Kenny Clarkson.
It was comedy. It was natural comedy. So that I gave the speech right before playing the pop song.
There was another story that made me smile in terms of the creation of the record being a little bit unusual. Didn't you run a mix through a pickle at one point?
We did. So I wanted the ending, a brick wall that's super extended. I wanted it to make you feel uncomfortable. And as you're listening to it, I wanted it to slowly feel like, I wanted people to get uncomfortable because it almost sounds like as it's going, it's getting louder and louder and it slowly distorts. And I wanted it to feel like your speakers were blowing, like to completely suck people out of the song and be like, oh my God, do I need, you know what I mean? Like that feeling
yeah.
did my speakers just like get messed up? Like, should I? And then they start messing with their dial and then the next song comes on. It's, I wanted that like feeling of the mix is out of control and it's distorting and it's messing up your sound system. I wanted it to have that feeling. And their way of accomplishing that was to run the mix stereo through a pair of Pickles. And when you do that, I think it's Sylvia Massey did it with Tool. She was definitely the inspiration for the idea. Our guys did it a little differently. They had like their own vision of how to make it happen and make it their own. And they ran the mix stereo through the Pickles to get that distorted sound. And that's all it was. It was like, you got that nasty electric sounding distortion, like popping and crackling in this insane way through the song. And so they slowly pull that into the mix as it goes on, as this like crazy drawn out ending is happening. Yeah, that was the Pickle story. It was awesome to see them do it too, because they light up.
Oh, wow. So it's like being back
They
in
turned off the
chemistry
lights
lessons,
too, and you just see like there's just like electricity just like going crazy in these glowing pickles.
And that's the thing, in the day of like auto-tune and Pro Tools and everything being digital, it is quite fun to go back and basically do a chemistry experiment with your music.
I got to tell you, that was our whole record. It was so much fun making the album with Colin Britton and Rick Carson, because those paired together, there was always a real old school rock method that we used to get every sound we did. He was very much, you want to get that weird sound? Throw up a mic right here in the room. Who cares? In your natural reaction as a modern rock musician, every person I work with is very like, it's got to be done this way with this mic, and it's got to be in the specific spot, and you can't move it, and just all this like precision. And obviously there's oh my God.
What was that?
That was one of my daughter's big balloons out here. It just exploded.
I love that with me. Are you okay?
I'm fine. It was like one of those massive ones, like on a string that like you can like bounce off your hand, you know?
Just going, what just happened?
It just randomly exploded right here next to me. It wasn't even touching anything. Anyway.
How hot is it there at the moment? What's the temperature?
It's not super hot, but it is warmer. Like I can be outside and it's like comfortable. I'm not like sweaty or anything.
Heart rate's
But where
coming
was
back
I?
down now. Yeah.
I don't even know what I was talking about anymore.
We were both going, what? What was that? You were talking about the need for perfection and like modern rock music, saying your microphone has to be in a set place and following the rules and everything else. And you were saying
Exactly. And Colin was very much the guy like anti that. He's like, you want that sound? Just throw up a mic. We'll get it right here. We'll plug in all these pedals and we'll dial in the sound right now and commit to the sound. And it's like everything's always like using a DI and doing the effect after so they can tweak it to their liking. And like, it just created all these natural feeling moments. And I feel like over the years, some of the things I like the least about some of the music that we've made is how stale and perfect some of it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So working with him was just fun. Everything was entertaining. Everything felt new and like you were experiencing recording for the first time, you know? So just the whole process. And that speaks to what we talked about before with just how everything has that hint of positive energy, even if I'm talking about negative stuff. Like the whole record was that. Working with everyone I worked with on this record was just, the vibe was so positive and happy. And everyone that came in contact with the album was super appreciative and wanted to be there. And it was just great. Honestly, best time of my musical life.
And it's your first record that you've released since being signed to Fueled. So how did you feel about that? Were you nervous about signing to them? You know, obviously it sounds like you had a great experience making it. And in terms of like, you talked about liaising with the label earlier on, but was there any nerves in the run up to it?
First of all, none of what I just said happens without them. None of it. You know, Mind Reader doesn't exist. Resentment, which has, regardless of how you feel of any genre of music that we play, Resentment was accepted by everyone almost unanimously. And it's still in like our top 3 on Spotify to this day. It's doing very well. That doesn't exist without Colin, without having his influence on modern pop, because I'm very much not a modern pop guy. I'm very much like, I can do the punk thing, the rock thing, like heavier music thing. And I'll write you a pop song, but when it comes to modern production, I can't do that for you. Like, I'm not the guy to give you that sound. So we got to pull in somebody who does that for real and excels at it. And Colin was very much both. He grew up as a rock fan, who hasn't had the opportunity to make heavy rock records. He's getting more and more into that over the years. And then we ended up being the heaviest band that he's worked with so far. So for him, this was like his first chance to like spread his wings a little bit in that direction too. So it's just it was so cool. Just the team that we put together, the people that touched it, and just the overall experience together, like, couldn't have happened without Fueled By. So we were super happy to work with them. We had worked with parts of Fueled by Ramen since our record Homesick anyways. So John Janik, the old head of the label, was one of our managers around 2009 to 2013, I believe. He was like a part of the management group that we had. And, he ran that label. Pretty much every band you know of that's massive from Fueled by Ramen, he was the head of the label when that happened. He was a part of everything from the jump. Steve-O, our A&R guy now, and their A&R guy then, was always a part of checking out our singles, checking out our records, and giving his opinion on what he thinks we should do and what are the best songs here, in his opinion, as an A&R for Fueled by, who's obviously doing really well. So there were parts of their team who have been working with us for almost a decade now. So it just made sense. They were excited about getting us. It made me happy to think, like, we're going to be the heaviest band of all time on this record. We are going to play the first breakdowns on Fueled by Ramen's discography. And that made me so happy from the jump. When we were recording Last Chance to Dance with Will Putney, I'd be like, I was tracking the verses of that song, which are very like,
heavy.
Heavy. Yes. It's very much a metal song. And I'm just like chuckling to myself during takes. And he's like, what are you laughing at? And I'm like, and I would just, every now and then I just toss out, this is coming out on Fueled by Ramen. It made me so happy. Like, it was like a source of pride for me, like I grew up listening to all these bands, and like now my band is on this label that very much isn't usually in this genre. And I think it's awesome that they would have our back like that.
And lastly, what are your hopes? What are your aims for the band now? Once the record has come out, obviously we're going to hope to do live shows again soon, but what are your ambitions left on the bucket list you want to do?
Only thing I care about right now is like, I hope that this record lands with the fan base. I hope our fan base can find the things that they love in this record. They've already found Resentment. Resentment, like I said, has done really well. Degenerates is still in our top 10 still, and that's been over a year that's been out. Mind Reader's in our top 6 now. Everything We Need just bumped that out of the top 5. So it seems like the songs are doing pretty well when it comes to the people who do know about us, and hopefully we can extend that reach in other genres, which is, what our band has always been about, bringing in different influences, mixing different genres into the same formula that people know. And that was very much what we were trying to do here. So hopefully we can have stuff that people that have loved us, do love us, and may potentially love us, make them all happy in one album.
Well, good luck with the record, and thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.